This was the first time in Jason's life he'd ever shed tears, because in that moment he'd truly hit rock bottom. Just days before, during an underground fight, he'd accidentally left his opponent on the brink of death. That match ended up costing a crime boss tens of millions in gambling losses. Furious, the boss stormed into Jason's home and murdered his wife. When Jason came home and saw what happened, he didn't fight back. He just dropped to his knees. It wasn't cowardice. He just had nothing left to live for. The mob boss's son could have ended him right there with a bullet. But he had a crueler idea: to send a message and show his power. He cooked up a brutal punishment. Jason would be under non-stop surveillance, and unless he took his own life, anyone who got close to him would be silently killed. Not wanting to put his landlord in danger, Jason packed his few things and headed to a homeless shelter for the night. On the subway, a young guy recognized him and praised his last fight, talking about how impressive he'd been to keep the kid out of trouble. Jason pretended he was someone else and walked off. Even with all that trauma and loss, Jason's heart still stayed kind. When a homeless man stared at his new shoes, Jason first tried to scare him away. But when the man took off his own shoes, revealing feet covered in wounds, Jason handed over his shoes quietly, without a word. The next morning, everyone in the shelter had left, except that homeless man. Jason walked over carefully and realized the man wasn't breathing. He was already dead. The gang's reach was far, and their cruelty had no bounds. Wandering the streets after leaving the shelter, Jason was bumped by an old beggar, hobbling along. At first he didn't think much of it, but later, when he tried to buy something at a convenience store, he realized his wallet was gone. He'd been pickpocketed. Unable to pay, Jason just burst out laughing. The store owner had no choice but to call the police. And who showed up? None other than a dirty cop Jason had turned in years ago. What are the odds? The crooked officer dragged Jason to an abandoned spot, where he and a few others took turns beating him. "Nice to see you, rat," they yelled, calling him a walking disaster, who brought ruin to everyone he loved. They demanded to know why he hadn't just killed himself already. That night Jason finally lost the will to live. As he stood on the edge of a subway platform, ready to jump, fate stepped in, and he met the person who would change everything.